beginning next Sunday, we will have our celebration at 11 p.m. 11 p.m., that's right, 11 p.m. Right before midnight, right after 10 p.m. And how many will be here? But who does that? That was my thought a number of years ago. There was a pivotal life experience that I had as I was making my journey, making my way to where I am now and making my way to Open Heart and all of those things. And I had been invited to go to Chicago to preach at a church there in Chicago. And it was one of those things where it was actually a tag team. And I had the opportunity to preach with a minister, a pastor who had a very large church out of Indianapolis. He had a national television broadcast on BET, and he and I were preaching together. I mean, we got there that Sunday morning. We preached. They had 2 services. I preached first. He came up after me. He preached. Second service, I preached. He came up. We preached. Then that afternoon, his choir came from Indianapolis, and they did a concert, had a grand concert. And then the pastor, the host pastor of the church said, now, to help get people to come out for the revival this week, because we were preaching 5 nights, both of us, tag teaming those 5 nights. He said, we're going to make the rounds here in Chicago so that people could come out and know that you're going to be here. And the interesting thing, too, is that it snowed almost the first 3 days, almost nonstop, and the church was still packed every night, every day. And so anyway, we went, and he said we're going to make the rounds, and first we're going to go to church. Some people may be familiar with Clay Evans, who had a television broadcast and everything. We went to his church because he was doing a radio broadcast at 9, and he let me sit in his seat. Wow. And had all those things happening. And then the host pastor said, and now we're going to this other church. Their service starts at 11 p.m. And I said, what? 11 p.m. because they have 11 p.m. broadcast. The First Church of Deliverance has an 11 p.m. broadcast. They still do to this very day. And I thought, who does church at 11 p.m.? And yet, we got there to the church. And I thought, okay, just like a few hands went up, there'd be a few people there. We walked in, and there in the vestibule of the church, there were the choir members getting ready to go in. They had on their all white. If you see the sanctuary of that place, it's this very ornate kind of looking, and they have this cross that is lit. It's like a skylight that goes almost the entire length of the sanctuary that's up above the ceiling. It's just magnificent and all of that. And so I'm thinking still, but 11 o'clock, most people are going to be at home. They're going to be asleep. They're going to be getting their kids ready for service the next morning. So I went in, and for work the next morning, I went in and I sat down, and we looked as they had this grand processional. They started up the music. They have wonderful music there. And as the choir walked in, I started counting. There were 100 people in the choir at 11 o'clock at night. And then I started looking around, and the pews were filled, and there were anywhere from 200 to 300 people there at night. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And I'm still, at that moment, I was still learning new thought principles and reading and all of that. And so I was listening to the service and listening to the minister, because this was a church that has a sort of different bent on Christianity. And so as I listened to that, and suddenly the choir started singing this song that stayed with me. And the words to the song were, if you can see beyond today, as God can see, the clouds will roll away. And then they went on to sing that God is in times of sorrow, God is our hope for tomorrow. God will give you whatever you can see. And something about that resonated with me, and something about that stayed with me. And I still sing that song today. I found that when I bought the tape after it was over, and I played the tape over and over and over again until the tape wore out. And it wasn't available on CD, and so I put something in, a request on the internet, that if they're hard to find things, and if it ever comes out on CD, I would get notification. And one day I got notification on CD, and I listened to it and all of that. But those words, you know, as far as you can see, God will give you as far as you can see. And as I started thinking about that, and got ready for the month of October, and the theme was talking about expanded vision, expanded consciousness. And I started thinking about the fact that what we so often do in life is we deal with what we can see right here and right now. We deal with the problems, the circumstances, the conditions, those things that are here, that are before us. And people say, well, you know, I'm facing reality. I'm a realist. I got to face what's here and what's now. But the thing of it is that in our teaching and in our awareness, the important thing to understand is if we ever want to have something different, we have to see it, and more importantly, feel it before it ever can become a reality in our lives. And so often we get caught up in seeing and saying, well, this is how it is. It doesn't mean that just because this is how it is now, that it's going to always be this way. And in our lives, we can testify to that we've seen things, we've seen situations or circumstances feeling like that this is how it's always going to be. But somewhere, someplace, somebody had the vision, someone saw as God sees, as that song reminds us, to see something beyond today, something beyond the present moment, something beyond what is going on right here and right now. And that is what has propelled people forward throughout history. The ability that in the midst of situations, circumstances, and conditions to see beyond today, to see beyond present condition, to see beyond that. And as things started to happen this morning, on the prayer call this morning, Gabriel was reading from Raymond Charles Barker and talking about in the midst of things that we have an opportunity that as we look at what we would like to express in our lives, it's like picking up a stick in the middle. And on one end are those things that we don't want, and on the other is the things that we do want. And then later on this morning, we were listening to Abraham saying almost the exact same thing. The idea is if we get stuck in now and what's happening right here and never take the step beyond that and see that if you pick up the stick and focus on one end, you never see the other end. So we have to learn to look for that. I thought about how we were talking about open heart growing. And if you look here now, not all of the seats here are filled. And we could get here and say, well, you know, we talked about it, we tried it and all of that. I don't see that. I see the growth. I feel the growth. And that's the important thing, that it's beyond just seeing. Because ultimately, it's about getting that in your bones so that you feel it. And it's really important to get it there, to get the feeling. Because so often we just think that it's only what I can see, but don't realize that we have to feel it first. We have to feel it first. People talk about, well, when I get this, and when this happens, I'll be happy, I'll be successful, I'll have those things. No, you've got to feel it first. You have to live from that state. You have to be in that moment to see it already and to feel it and live as if you are already operating in that before it happens. And then you open up within yourself that place and that space within you that makes it welcome so that it comes in many ways even greater than what it was that you felt. But you have to know it and you have to feel it in order for it to show up. And that's what happens for people so often. We get caught up in, it ain't here, it ain't happening, that's not those things. And I was reading the other day, somebody was talking about the Wright brothers, and I happen to claim Dayton, Ohio as my hometown where the Wright brothers are from. And it talked about the fact that in their first experiments, the first things that the Wright brothers did, very little progress. But one of them, I don't remember if it was Orville or Wilbur, who said, well, not much is happening now, but I can feel us flying through the air. And he went on, and they continued on with their experimentation and all that, and they kept saying, well, this happened and this malfunctioned and that didn't happen. But one of them said, but I can still feel myself flying through the air. And we all know that what happened, because today we're sitting here and there are people flying all over. We've flown all over. We not only have taken that technology and fly across the ocean and all of this, but even going into outer space because someone felt it. And the thing of it is that when you feel it as if it's already happened, you begin that process of it coming into your life. And so we stand in a moment and in the place right here, right now, as a community, as a congregation, as a people, both personally and collectively, where I'm inviting you to feel whatever it is in your life that you wish to have happen, to feel it already happening, already before it happens. Just know that there is more with you than all of the other stuff that would seem to be opposing you or would seem to be not showing up already. I think about one of my favorite stories in the Bible. The prophet Elisha is probably one of my favorite figures in Scripture. And there's this story where Elisha was running. He was being pursued. He was going to be persecuted if he got captured. And he and his companion, they call it servant, but they were camped out, and they knew that the army from, I think it was the Midianites that was surrounding him, and servant was afraid, and Elisha went to sleep. And the servant kept going up looking out. There's a whole lot of folks out there. They're going to get us. Because finally Elisha woke up, and he said to him, there is more with us than there is with them. And this looked at him like, "Oh, man's crazy." He said, but there's more with us than there is with them. And then he said the prayer, allow him to see as I see. And then it says that the servant's eyes were open, and he saw that while there were a bunch of Midianites around there, that God had a much bigger army. And then not get away from the militaristic, because I'm not into all of that, but the idea from this, the metaphysical idea from this is that whatever little, and I'm saying it purposely, little circumstance or condition that is facing you or facing me, that when I open my eyes to see clearly, to see, as the song reminds us, God sees, I begin to understand that there's more with me. More with me. More with you. More with each of you than could ever be in a little circumstance or little condition or little situation. And when you see it, and then when you begin to feel it, because I imagine that Elisha, what allowed him to sleep in the midst of being surrounded like that, because he felt that he knew already that there was more out there, that there was something that was available to him that other folks didn't understand, that he already had it in his bones, that he knew where he came from, he knew who he was, he knew who he was connected to, he knew what was in him that was dwelling up, and Elisha stayed in that knowing. And so when the servant was like, we need to be taking care of this and taking care of that, and he said, I'm going to go to sleep right now, because there's more with us than there are out there. And that's just my message for you this morning. There's more within you than there is outside of you. There's more within you than there is that's trying to discourage you. There's more within you than there is that's trying to frustrate you. There's more within you than what's trying to hold you back outside of there. There is more in you that's trying to turn you around and tell you this is not the time, this is not the place, you can't do it. There's more in you that's telling you, yes, you can. Yes, it is. Yes, it's available. Yes, it's happening. Yes, it's here now. Yes, just allow it. Yes, just claim it. Just let it go. And see it. And feel it. And know it's done. So it is.